So today I wanted to share a really personal story. September is Depression Awareness Month, and we're almost at the end of September, so I thought I'd better record my story, and I've been umming and ahhing about what to say and how much to share, and I've just decided that I'm going to record the story so far, because I don't think depression is something you can get rid of. I think that you can manage it, but I think that there's always the chance that it could come back. So I've made some notes and I'll just be referring to those a little bit. But so where to start is that well, I didn't really remember not having depression. It was only once I started to feel better that I realised that having depression and feeling depressed was something that I'd had for as long as I could remember. So I'd quite often go to sleep and hope that I wouldn't wake up the next day, and it wasn't that I wanted to be dead so much as I felt unable to cope and overwhelmed and anxious, and so I hoped that I would be ill or I would not wake up, and then that way I wouldn't have to deal with the next day. So that was how I came to realise that I'd been depressed quite a long time. But it all came to a head when I was pregnant with my first child, and I got married, and we bought our first house in the same month while I was only a few weeks pregnant, and I couldn't cope with all the changes that were going on. There was a lot to do, there was a lot of pressure, and she was completely unexpected because I didn't think I could have children. So it spiralled from there. Oh, and I had a new job. So I had a lot of big life changes all happen in an extremely short period of time, and it tipped me over the edge of what I was able to cope with. But a lot of people that know me wouldn't realise that I'm ever depressed, particularly because I am quite good at hiding it. So for example, when I was a classroom teacher and I was really depressed, I could go and teach a class and I would seem relatively normal, maybe a bit quieter, but generally I don't think anyone really noticed, and then I would go and cry in the toilets in between classes, and I just wasn't able to cope. So I think that you can't tell by looking at someone whether they're depressed. I think sometimes people closest to them can notice changes in behaviour or changes in temperament, but I'll get onto that. So the main problem when I got in my worst phase of it was that I was completely overwhelmed and emotional, and like I said, crying quite a lot and feeling just massively overwhelmed. And then when I had my daughter, it didn't get better, it got worse. So I can remember being cross when she was born because she cried a lot when she was first born, and I can remember being very cross about this. And it's completely unreasonable, and when I look back I think, poor thing, she'd just been born, and instead of being pleased I was just hacked off that she was crying. And lots of instances like that. But then you get another layer onto the depression, is that then you feel guilty. So depression can get almost made worse because of all the guilty feelings. So the guilt for feeling like you're not being the right partner or friend or mother or whatever the different roles are that you have in your life, feeling like that you're not fulfilling any of them well. And then that just makes you feel worse and feel like you shouldn't be here, you don't deserve the nice life that you have. I was able to hide it quite well, but the downside of that was that it was exhausting because I was pretending to be happy, I was pretending to be able to chat to people and take things in, and there's lots of signs now, having had lots of highs and lows of my depression and lots of pockets of depression, that I feel that I'm able to deal with it better. So there's a few signs that I now see in myself that I know that I'm beginning to dip. So things like not sleeping properly, not because of my children, but actually because I can't sleep properly for extended periods of time. Everyone has some days where they don't sleep properly, but it's when you start seeing the pattern. The other thing I notice is I get snappier and I'm a lot more short-tempered than usual. I also feel like I don't want to do anything. So I could be invited out to do things, so I could have made plans and I don't want to do them. And it could be that I'm going to spend time with friends and I've really been looking forward to it. I booked a holiday and I'm meant to be going away and I don't want to do it. And that's a really big sign. But the ways I overcame it were, well, it got to the point where I was just lying on the sofa crying all the time with a little baby crawling around, and my poor husband was at work and I'd be ringing him, begging him to come home, and he's extremely supportive and he would come home, but obviously it's not a long-term solution for me to be able to just ring him because I can't cope. So he and my mum worked together to get me to go to the doctor, and I was put on some different tablets, and after a few weeks they worked, but I was not very comfortable with tablets, and I'm still on them now, and I'm still not happy about that, and I do regularly try and come off them. But what I found is that you have to choose your timing well, and I've never got the timing quite right that I can come off them. So after a few days of not taking them, if I forget or I run out, my husband always knows, and he always says to me, I know, you need to take those tablets. So yeah, so once I realise I've got this dip problem, the most important thing is to communicate to the people that matter around me that this is happening, because not that I want to be treated differently, but they need to understand that perhaps I'm not coping, perhaps things aren't going the way I'd like them to go, and I'm not able to manage my normal workload, my normal, you know, all the children, the 2 children, and then working and then running the house and things like that. I can't manage. So then we have to decide as a family what to do about that. So it could be that my husband will be really kind and he'll take some of the load off me. He's very good anyway, but he'll try and make it easier for me. He'll make sure that I get more sleep. So he'll give me lie-ins at the weekend, for example, and he'll encourage me to say no to commitments so that I can have a rest. So encourage me to do some, like being active and going out for walks and doing things, but not necessarily to say yes to all the things like play dates and things that I might usually do. And the other thing that I've come to learn over the years is that depression is not a constant state. So now when I have my dips, I can say to myself, this will pass, I know it will pass, it will be fine. And when I'm feeling like I think that I'm over it and I'm fine, I also have to remind myself that this is, everything changes, everything's in a state of flux, and there's a chance that it could come back, and I need to be aware, I need to look after myself and be aware of that. So it's quite a big part of my life, but it's definitely something that I now, after quite a few years, and you know, I'm in my mid-30s, so it's taken me a long time to get a grip on it all, and I'm ever so grateful to my family for being so brilliant. But I think that there's still a problem with talking about depression, and I did and ah and wonder whether I should record this video because I didn't want people to judge me, which is strange, because if anyone told me that they were depressed, I would really want to help them. So it's I feel a bit silly saying that I feel like I'd be judged, but I think some people do still attach a stigma to it, and will think maybe less of me or less well of me in some way. But if you've suffered with depression, I'd really like to hear in the comments what you do to help yourself in those situations, and I'll catch you again soon.